Hey everybody, how you doing? I hope you are well. We're back with another dose of you know what. Let's go ahead and get right into it. I've got a chart here that I think paints a really clear picture on what's happening today. And this chart goes all the way back to the year 2000. And we're going to get into that here in a minute. But first of all, hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Please make sure you're still subscribed as we continue to unveil the real economy and what we call a daily dose of economic reality, and what you're hearing from the talking heads, what you're hearing from the pundits, the quote unquote leaders, is that the economy is strong, the consumer is resilient. But most of you know, you should know by now, hopefully all of you know, that those words are only enabled, resilient, strong, by a borrowing economy, right? As soon as the borrowing stops, aka debt issuance, money creation, money created out of thin air, this whole ball game comes to an end. Of course, this all started back in the 70s. You saw inflation accelerate starting in the early 70s, but nothing like we're seeing now. This is absolutely bonkers. And so, to enable this, they have to allow people to continue to go further into debt. And we're going to look at credit card debt here in just a moment. Let me bring up a chart on this one. All right, here we go. A picture of what's the saying goes, a picture tells 1,000 words. Well, now a picture only tells 800 words. Inflation. You don't get as much as you used to. Take a look to the right here. Of course, 1.05 trillion. This is not even the most recent. When the latest quarterly numbers come out, it will be even higher. But what I want you to do is look back at the shaded area right here, 2008 to 9. We see that was the recession, the Great Recession, the financial crisis, as many call it. But look what happens. Very interesting. We saw the debt spike up into the recession. But remember, there was panic with the banks, right? At the very beginning, the banks didn't know that they were going to be rescued. They didn't know that they had a basically a guarantee of being solvent, of being basically backed, right, by the money creation. Once they found that out, instead of dropping debt because people quit spending, job losses spiked. We all know what happened probably back then. The housing market imploded. What happened was the biggest spike up in credit, aka debt, that we'd ever seen. Why did that happen? Well, that's because the banks saw and the banks were guaranteed being rescued, right? Uh, all the money pumped into the banks to rescue the banks. So ever since then, we did see a dip slightly after the big surge. It's been increase, increase, increase. 2020, we saw a drop with the economic activity falling off of a cliff. There was a brief period where banks didn't lend either, but then it became what? The stimulus economy, the money printing economy. And then we saw debt spike up again, right? So what does this tell you? This tells you that this entire economy is driven by people going into debt to enable to spend money, right? And this is just one part of the puzzle. When the talking heads, a lot of them talk about the economy, the business news networks, they talk about what? GDP, that's gross domestic product, and it's debt that enables the GDP number to remain positive. It's also government spending enables the GDP to remain positive. And that's the number that's looked at as the growth, what they're calling growth, the strong economy, right? So once you solve that little puzzle there and know how they can use these words, and you know that debt is the driver of all this, then you know this whole thing is a joke. And if they keep on doing what they've been doing, we're not going to see inflation come down. In fact, you're going to see inflation to accelerate, continue to accelerate, right? So this is a huge, huge, dangerous time here for the country. People are struggling with the last report we talked about. One half of the people in America about are struggling to make their house payment, both rents and mortgages, right? They're doing all kinds of money shuffling to enable themselves to get by. But how much longer is it going to last, right? Even if the banks continue to give out credit because it doesn't matter anymore, banks are no longer fearful that the consumer, the borrowers, are not going to pay back their money because what? The people at the top, the CEOs, are they going to lose any money if the bank fails? Or let's say the bank gets taken over by another bank. No, they don't care. They've already made so much money. I think after just a few years, the CEO is making 5, 10, 20, 30, $40 million a year. They don't care after a few years, plus all the stock buybacks and insider deals that they get. After a few years, they have so much money, I don't think they care. And they'll just get another job somewhere else, even if their bank gets bought out or gets taken over or fails. There's one example. Was it a CEO of one of the failed banks last year? Was it Silicon Valley Bank? One of those banks. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. One of those CEOs, though, got a job at a central bank, I believe, over in Asia or in the Middle East somewhere. That's something I reported on a couple years ago. Or no, last year after it happened, which is a little over a year ago now, since we're in March. That was March 2023. We're in April 2024. Just trying to get the timeline in my head so I don't um, get called out on saying some wrong information. So just over a year ago, we heard the CEO got that new position. The point I'm trying to make here is nobody that runs these banks, nobody is afraid. Nobody is afraid of losing their job. They're not afraid of the bank failing or getting taken over. They're not afraid of millions of their customers not paying back their loans. One, because they're guaranteed, especially the big banks, they're guaranteed life support. But two, the ones at the very top that make these decisions on to keep loaning out money, they've already made their multi millions of dollars. They're probably going to be building underground bunkers like Mark Zuckerbugs, right? So they know what's happening. They see what's going on here. That's why you see a lot of them going to cash. Speaking of CEOs, though, let's talk about Jamie Dimon. He basically flipped. He did a flip here. He flipped. He was out there for a while saying, look out, the economy, what's the word that he used, is a tsunami, an economic tsunami is coming. That was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Maybe even he didn't know the magnitude of the money lending that was going to take place to keep this economy propped up, the money creation. Jamie Dimon here is out of Reuters. U.S. economy is booming. Now he says it's booming. Okay, so why is it booming though? Is it booming because his bank and other banks are letting people continue to borrow more and more money, even at the higher rates? CEO Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan Chase expressed confidence in the robust, there's another good word, right? Robust U.S. economy backed by strong employment and healthy consumer finances. Remember, healthy consumer finances is the ability to go further into debt. The U.S. economic boom is, quote, unbelievable, Dimon said at an economic club in New York on Tuesday. Quote, even if we go into recession, the consumer's still in good shape. Oh, gosh. I guess he knows. I guess he knows they can continue to borrow more money. Still, he warned about the potential effects of the economy, rising national debt, inflation, geopolitical conflicts. Well, look at the story that someplace in Texas just got hacked by Russians, right? Supposedly they affected the water supply in some town. That's out there in the news. Just type that in. That's actually really happening. I said these things were likely to continue. The war economy continues to roll right along with more funding just being implemented, just being approved. And that's going to go in the pockets of a few people. Is it going to help most people? Going to help you and me? Probably not. We're going to end up paying for it, though, in some way, shape, or form, but it's not going to help the people that actually need the help. It's not going to help any of us, right? Of course, they're going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that we need these wars to protect freedom, and then if we don't stop the bad guys, then the U.S. is going to be under attack next. I think the U.S. is going to fall at some point here. I would be surprised if we made it through this year without some big um, downturn happening. Now it could be triggered by some massive scare situation like 2020. It could be the consumer. The consumer finally hits a brick wall. Even if they can borrow money, if you can't pay it back, endless borrowing only goes so far. If you can't pay it back, if you can no longer meet your monthly payment, then you're going to see default time. The banks will be fine, but the consumer will not be fine unless something changes, right? We're talking about more debt forgiveness, more ways to get rid of people's payment obligations, all the different things they can come up with to keep this going. It's going to be very interesting, folks. So, what do you think about that chart at the very beginning? All debt driven. You can see by the credit card debt, it spiked right up after the banks were all rescued, after the TARP, and all those things that happened in 2008. No coincidence, folks. It's a direct consequence of guaranteed bank solvency. And all they have to do, remember, is print the money, and the banks are guaranteed to remain solvent. Crazy but true. What do you guys think about this? Please let me know down in comments. We're going to make this a bit of a shorter one. Hope you guys have a good night. Hope you guys are good. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.